Welcome to Crime Line. I'm Angela. Tonight, we examine a case that underscores a chilling and often unspoken reality sometimes. The greatest danger can lurk where we least expect it, even within the perceived sanctuary of our own homes, behind a locked door. We're looking at the tragic and brutal murder of Sasha Samsuddin, a vibrant young woman in Orlando, Florida, whose enjoyable night out with friends took a horrifying and irreversible turn. This is also a story of how meticulous, patient police work, piecing together disparate clues, ultimately unmasked a predator and brought him to justice. Sasha Samsuddin was a native of New York, born in 1988, a young woman with a bright future. After graduating from the esteemed University of Florida, she chose to continue building her life and promising career in the Sunshine State. She was employed by an education firm, where she skillfully managed their social media accounts, demonstrating a keen understanding of the digital world. Beyond her primary employment, Sasha was also deeply active and passionate about the dynamic real estate and apartment rental market in and around the bustling city of Orlando. Her commitment was evident in her volunteer work with the local apartment association, where she also generously lent her social media expertise. By all accounts, Sasha was known to be exceptionally good at her job, a professional admired for her competence and drive. Personally, she was remembered as a woman with an infectious, bubbly, and fun personality, surrounded by a large and loyal social circle of caring and supportive friends who cherished her presence. The evening of October 16th, 2015 was a crisp Friday, and Sasha, like many young professionals, had plans for a night out on the town, looking forward to unwinding after a work week. She spent some time at a popular local spot called Sidebar before moving on to a well-known nightclub, The Attic, where she enjoyed the vibrant atmosphere until about 12:30 a.m. As the night began to wind down for her, she informed her friend Anthony that she was heading home. She did just that, and they even made casual plans to meet up the following morning, a testament to the ordinary, carefree end to an evening out. However, the alcoholic beverages Sasha had consumed that evening must have started to significantly and more profoundly impact her during her journey home. Her state of intoxication became apparent enough that two young women, Haley and Julia, who happened to be nearby and did not know Sasha previously, spotted her acting extremely disoriented. In a commendable act of kindness and civic-mindedness, they approached Sasha and offered to share an Uber ride with her. Their primary, selfless concern was simply to ensure that this vulnerable stranger made it home safely. When they arrived at Sasha's building, the modern uptown apartments, they waited patiently, like true Good Samaritans, as Sasha, clearly struggling, attempted to use the keypad to enter the building. Unfortunately, because she did not appear to have her essential entrance key fob, a physical key, any form of identification, or even her iPhone on her person, she was unsuccessful in gaining entry to her own apartment building. Before long, the building's on-duty security officer, Stephen Duxbury, approached the three women at the entrance. After Haley and Julia lucidly explained Sasha's predicament, a resident unable to access her building due to intoxication and lack of keys, Duxbury advised them that, due to strict building policy, he could not permit anyone into the building without proper identification or verifiable proof that they were a resident. Nor, he stated firmly, could he allow her to simply sleep on the couch in the building's lobby to sober up. As they continued to talk, trying to find a solution, a young male resident of the building happened to open the outside door from within to exit or enter. Seizing the opportunity, Sasha was able to slip inside. Haley and Julia, relieved, spoke with the security officer for a few minutes longer, thanking him for his time and assistance, such as it was. Now, confident that Sasha had at least made it safely inside her apartment building, they departed, their act of kindness completed. The next morning, a Saturday, Sasha failed to turn up for her planned meeting with her friend Anthony, a sense of unease began to settle among her friends. They began texting and calling her, their messages and calls piercing the silence of her phone, but no one received any response. A growing ripple of worry spread as these friends then started contacting each other. Had anyone heard from Sasha? Had she overslept? Or was something amiss? When no one could locate her or get any form of reply, a group of her concerned friends went to her apartment building, hoping to find her safe at home, perhaps just sleeping off the previous night. After receiving no response to their knocks on her apartment door, a deeply worried Anthony made a call to 911 to report his serious concern for her well-being and request a welfare check. Police officers from the Orlando Police Department arrived at Sasha's apartment around 8:30 p.m. that evening, Saturday, October 17th, to perform the requested welfare check. Upon entering the apartment, they were immediately struck by an almost unsettling tidiness. The apartment was exceptionally clean. A strong, pervasive smell of chemical cleaning products permeated the air inside. Notably, and with a degree of suspicion, the cabinet which typically held disinfectants and bleach was found left wide open. Initially, nothing else seemed overtly out of place until they proceeded to the bedroom. There, the officers made a grim discovery. They found Sasha. She was lying on her bed, unnaturally still, wrapped up tightly in her comforter as if someone had placed it over her. Her purple shirt had been violently ripped from her body, and the necklace she had been wearing that night was found tangled in her hair. Her body, too, like the apartment itself, carried the distinct, acrid smell of cleaning solution, a silent testament to a desperate attempt to erase something. Further examination revealed the extent of the violence. Sasha's shirt had been ripped aggressively in the front, and her trousers and underwear had been forcefully removed, leaving clear abrasions on her skin from the struggle. Those crucial items of her clothing were missing from the scene, spirited away. The subsequent autopsy would reveal the horrifying truth: Sasha Samsuddin had died of asphyxiation. Immense pressure had been applied around or directly down on her throat, savagely cutting off her ability to breathe. Her body also showed clear and undeniable signs of other severe injuries, painting a picture of a brutal struggle for her life: significant bruising on her chest consistent with several heavy blows, evidence of blunt force trauma to her head, multiple contusions on her upper body, as though she had been repeatedly and viciously punched, defensive wounds on her arms, a silent story of her fight against her attacker, and other contusions and abrasions consistent with somebody forcefully and violently restraining her. Initially, an Orlando police spokesperson stated that there were no overt signs of forced entry into her apartment. Her door, which could be accessed either by a traditional key or a digital security code, appeared undamaged, its integrity seemingly intact. Crime scene investigators meticulously processed the apartment and lifted 2 latent fingerprints. One was found on the bedside table, a common enough place. The second, however, was found on a lifted toilet seat, a detail considered notably odd and out of place, as Sasha lived alone. There was also a faint but discernible imprint of a single shoe found on the floor next to her bed. DNA samples, potentially holding the key to identifying her killer, were carefully collected from both within the apartment and from Sasha's person. The news of Sasha's violent and untimely death was incomprehensible to those who knew and loved her. A wave of shock and grief washed over her friends and family. Who could possibly have wanted to hurt such a well-loved, kind, effervescent, and vibrant person like Sasha? Police began their difficult investigation by methodically interviewing those individuals who were known to have been in contact with Sasha on the night she disappeared. The 2 Good Samaritans, Haley and Julia, were questioned, and their compassionate actions were noted. Their account of what transpired up to the point of Sasha entering her apartment building aligned perfectly and independently with the timeline provided by Sasha's friends for when she left the Attic nightclub that evening. Sasha had indeed left the club around 12:30 a.m. and, with their crucial assistance, was making her way home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Their account of dropping Sasha off at the Uptown Place apartments around that specific time also aligned with the initial statements provided by the security guard who had been on duty, Stephen Duxbury. So, the investigators turned their attention more closely and probingly towards Stephen Duxbury, hoping to meticulously piece together Sasha's movements and interactions from approximately 2 a.m. onwards on that fateful morning. Stephen Duxbury was, at the time, employed by a private company called Vital Security and Investigations as a security guard. His company was contracted by the management of Uptown Place apartments, where Sasha lived, to provide on-site security. He had been employed at that specific building for about 5 months prior to Sasha's murder. Duxbury's background check revealed he was a U.S. Air Force veteran who had received an honorable discharge. He was married and, at the time of the incident, was a computer science student at a local state college. He and his wife of 3 years had, according to records, wed quickly in a simple courthouse ceremony right before his first deployment to Afghanistan. They were reportedly in the process of planning a more formally official wedding ceremony now that he had returned to civilian life. In his initial, seemingly straightforward statement to police, Stephen Duxbury said that he encountered the 3 young women, Sasha, Haley, and Julia, at the main entrance of the apartment building at about 2 a.m. He recounted that Haley and Julia had explained to him that they had found Sasha wandering downtown, appearing lost, aimless, and disoriented, and that they were understandably concerned for her well-being. They had somehow managed to ascertain her address and had commendably brought her to the apartment building. He described Sasha as appearing very heavily intoxicated, stumbling, and at some points, seeming not even to hear anyone speaking to her or asking her questions. She was, he said, hyper-focused instead on attempting to use the building's call box to dial herself in, a futile effort as she didn't have her phone with her, nor did she possess any ID or her essential key fob that would have allowed her to gain access. Duxbury informed the police that he had initially, and correctly according to policy, refused Sasha access to the building because, without her keys or any form of identification, she could not definitively prove her residence there. After she was eventually let into the building by the other male resident who happened to be passing, Duxbury claimed he simply let her wander into the lobby and then he left to do a routine security sweep of the building a few minutes later. His stated purpose for this sweep, he claimed, was to ensure that she had either successfully gained entry to her own unit or had decided to leave the building. He went on to say that he encountered her again, alone, in one of the building's hallways. According to Duxbury's account, Sasha had tried to enter her apartment by using the digital keypad lock on her door, but was evidently not able to recall the correct code in her intoxicated state. He advised police that Sasha then told him her key fob was in her car, which was parked in the building's garage, so, he claimed, he started to accompany her towards the garage. However, just as they were proceeding, Sasha suddenly announced that she recalled the code and promptly headed back towards her apartment. At that specific point, Duxbury asserted, he left her alone to enter her apartment. When he passed by her door on a later patrol, he said she was nowhere to be seen and he assumed she was safely inside. He then added a detail that would later be scrutinized. He claimed to have seen Sasha later that night, or very early morning, inside the building with an unknown male. Police obtained his official security log and written report from that night as crucial pieces of evidence, meticulously referencing them against the extensive CCTV footage captured by cameras inside the apartment building. With Stephen Duxbury's initial story seeming to make at least some superficial sense, though containing that slightly odd and uncorroborated addendum about an unknown male accompanying Sasha. The investigators broadened their scope, turning to examine other significant relationships in Sasha's life. Taylor Unsinger, an ex-boyfriend of Sasha's, was brought in for an interview. The two had dated exclusively for a couple of years and had, at one point, been quite serious, even discussing the possibility of marriage. Though their romantic relationship had ended, Taylor stated that their connection had remained entirely amicable. They shared many mutual friends, and he had even remained in friendly contact with Sasha's mother. He willingly, and without hesitation, complied with the detective's request to provide a DNA sample for comparison. Benjamin Roebuck also had a past romantic relationship with Sasha. They had known each other since their high school days, but had started dating during their sophomore year at college. Much like Sasha's relationship with Taylor, their romantic involvement had transitioned into a continued, supportive friendship after their breakup. Ben had unfortunately learned the devastating news of Sasha's death from a post circulating on Facebook and then proactively contacted the police directly to offer any information he could. Investigators learned there had been one final cryptic text message sent from Sasha's phone late that night, or rather, very early the next morning. It had been sent to Ben's phone at precisely 5:12 a.m. and simply read, "Ben." He had seen the message and responded about 15 minutes later, asking if she was okay, but he never heard back from Sasha. Both Taylor Unsinger and Ben Roebuck also willingly agreed to provide DNA samples. By all discernible measures, each of these young men appeared to have maintained genuinely caring and healthy friendships with Sasha and were clearly, profoundly, and sincerely grieving her loss. From a purely investigative standpoint, their DNA also conclusively tested negative against the unknown male DNA profile found at the crime scene. The case, with known immediate suspects and forensic leads from ex-partners exhausted, was on the verge of going cold. It was at this critical juncture that the police decided to return to the voluminous CCTV footage one more time, re-examining every frame with fresh, critical eyes. Comparing the footage minutely and painstakingly with Stephen Duxbury's detailed story and his official security log, they found that Duxbury was last captured on any of the building's cameras at 6:36 a.m. on the morning of Sasha's death. He had previously told police that his shift officially completed at 6 a.m., though he acknowledged that he did sometimes linger a while afterwards in order to complete his paperwork and reports. This, in itself, was not a major discrepancy, but a second, much more significant detail gleaned from the footage raised considerable red flags. Stephen Duxbury was clearly captured on camera leaving the apartment building carrying 2 noticeably full bags of trash. This was not common practice. Indeed, it was highly unusual for contracted security officers in that building, or most similar buildings, to be assigned trash removal duties. This seemingly minor but out-of-place observation was enough to pique the investigators' strong interest and prompted them to think, let's have another, more in-depth conversation with this guy. In the subsequent, more pointed second interview, Duxbury initially, and steadfastly, reiterated the same narrative he had provided to police in his initial statements given on the day following Sasha's death. He maintained that he had simply tried to help Sasha, followed her around the building as she searched for her keys or a way into her apartment, then left her to gain access on her own, assuming she was successful, and only later saw her with an apparently unsuspicious, unknown man. It was during this more intense second interview, however, that astute police officers also noticed fresh marks on Stephen's arms. Marks that looked like scratches and potential bite marks, injuries which are often telltale signs of defensive wounds inflicted by a victim during a violent struggle. Following this observation, a polygraph test was administered to Duxbury. While the full, nuanced details of the polygraph questioning and his physiological responses are extensive, the test administrator later bluntly informed Duxbury that his responses to certain crucial direct questions showed significant physiological reactions, spikes in heart rate and other metrics that were strongly indicative of deception. These deceptive responses were particularly prominent on questions such as, "Did you cause the death of Sasha?" and "Do you know who caused Sasha's death?" and "Did you remove any evidence from Sasha's apartment?" To try and match the single shoe print found next to Sasha's bed, Stephen Duxbury was asked by investigators to provide the specific pair of sneakers that he had worn to work on that particular evening. The shoes that Stephen initially provided for examination did not match the crime scene print. However, the forensic evidence was beginning to close in. When his fingerprints came back from the lab, they were found to be a positive match to the latent prints lifted from the toilet seat and the nightstand inside Sasha's apartment. With this undeniable forensic link, Stephen Duxbury was formally charged with first-degree murder. After his multiple, adamant statements to police that he had never entered Sasha's home, he had now been conclusively and scientifically placed inside her apartment. Furthermore, his DNA was also found to be a direct match to the biological sample taken from Sasha's chest during the autopsy. Following these damning forensic breakthroughs, the police swiftly obtained a search warrant for Duxbury's home. There, during a thorough search, they located another pair of sneakers. These, upon examination, proved to be a precise match to the shoe print found at the crime scene next to Sasha's bed. With this cascade of evidence, grand jurors found there was more than enough probable cause to formally charge 33-year-old Stephen Duxbury with first-degree murder, attempted sexual battery, and burglary. The missing articles of Sasha's clothing, her trousers and underwear, were never located by investigators. However, the security footage that had captured Stephen Duxbury at 6:36 a.m., leaving the building with those two suspicious trash bags, the very same time-stamped video clip that had brought the police focus back around to Duxbury as a prime person of interest, seemed to offer a chilling and plausible explanation for their disappearance. Investigators noted that the particular type of trash bags he was carrying appeared to be a visual match to a box of identical trash bags found in Sasha's apartment. The considerable length of time that elapsed after Stephen Duxbury entered the building's garage with these bags, before re-emerging, led investigators to strongly suggest that he may have placed those bags and their incriminating contents into his own car, rather than disposing of them in the building's designated communal trash area, thus removing them from the premises entirely. A crucial question still lingered. How exactly did Stephen Duxbury manage to gain access to Sasha's locked apartment that night? It was considered extremely unlikely by investigators, given her severe level of intoxication and his role as a uniformed security guard she didn't personally know, that she would have voluntarily let him enter. Indeed, the evidence strongly suggested she did not. A police technician, conducting a forensic examination of Stephen's smartphone, made another vital discovery. Someone had used that phone to perform an internet search, specifically looking for information on how to override or bypass a quick-set digital lock, the exact type of electronic lock that was installed on Sasha's apartment door. That damning internet search was performed around 5 o'clock on the morning of the murder. This timing coincided with a critical 90-minute period during which Stephen Duxbury is conspicuously not seen on any of the building's security camera footage, nor is his location revealed or accounted for by any other security-related patrol data or logs. Experts in locksmithing and security confirmed that with that particular type of quickset lock, there are indeed methods to manipulate it open from the outside without leaving any overt signs of forced entry, so that a homeowner might not even immediately realize that someone had gained unauthorized access through that cylinder. In the aftermath of Sasha's murder and Duxbury's arrest, the Samsuddin family filed a civil lawsuit against Quickset Locks. Their suit cited that the inherent security risks and vulnerabilities of the company's Smart Key deadbolt design had been publicly documented in an article published in Wired magazine as far back as 2013. The company has since redesigned the lock in question and, in January 2016, after initially denying any vulnerabilities with their product, nonetheless implemented changes to its design. A second lawsuit was also filed by Sasha's grieving parents, this time against Vital Security, the private security contracting company that was used by Uptown Place Apartments and which had employed Stephen Duxbury. In their legal claim, they stated that Vital Security had not performed a sufficiently thorough background check on Duxbury before hiring him as a security guard. Their attorney asserted that a truly comprehensive check would have, or should have, revealed that Stephen Duxbury had a prior criminal history and existing mental health issues that would have disqualified him from such a position of trust. Vital Security countered these serious claims, stating that they had conducted a statewide FBI background check on Duxbury and found that he was a former member of the U.S. Armed Services with an honorable discharge, that he was a fully licensed security guard in the state of Florida, and that he had passed all requisite checks with no criminal record being returned at the time of his hiring. Stephen Duxbury was ultimately tried and convicted. He was given 2 life sentences for the charges of first-degree murder and attempted rape, with an additional 15 years tacked on for a burglary conviction. He fought these convictions in an appeal lodged in 2019. His appeals were comprehensively denied, and Stephen Duxbury remains, thankfully and justly, behind bars, where he will likely spend the rest of his life. Stephen Duxbury remains behind bars, his fate sealed by a convergence of classic, observant detective work, the irrefutable power of forensic science, and a careful, methodical review of digital footprints that painted a clear picture of his guilt. Sasha Samsuddin's tragic and senseless death serves as a stark and painful reminder of an individual's vulnerability, even in places where one should feel most secure. But it also stands as a testament to the unwavering perseverance of investigators dedicated to uncovering the truth. No matter how cleverly or desperately a killer attempts to conceal their heinous tracks and erase their crimes. I'm Angela, and this has been Crime Line. We'll see you next time.